So if you watched the last video in this series, you'll know that I submitted this oil painting to an art exhibit near me, and I got the email letting me know that I did not get in. But honestly, I really don't care about it that much. So I'm going to talk about how I deal with rejection from art galleries or anything, pretty much. And also talk about my art process as I was finishing up this piece. And I'm actually, because I got rejected, I was able to work on the painting a little bit more than what I originally did. So there's actually going to be one more video where I'm finishing up the edits. I'm going to show you how I make my edits digitally first, and then I try to replicate them with oil painting. So that will be the next video in the series, but for this one I'm going to talk about rejection and kind of walk you through the oil painting process for this middle portion. So stay tuned. Okay, so this is the final painting after my edits that I'll show in the next video. So I wanted to give you a preview of where the painting's going to be going. I'm going to talk first about my process since I'm going to be doing new stuff right now, and then I'll talk more about getting rejected from that gallery. So here, I really wanted to bump up the contrast for the entire painting. So you can see I started out glazing kind of a light colored paint. It was mostly like titanium white and then maybe a little bit of Naples yellow and pale rose blush over like the chest area where the highlights are. And then I'm trying to deepen those shadows. So I'm adding in a lot of kind of transparent dark paint. I don't want to completely cover up what I had done previously, but I want to really darken it and bump up that contrast. So I'm doing kind of a really dark glaze at first with pretty much mostly like diluted raw umber paint. And then into that raw umber glaze, I kind of paint in even darker colors. So I'm just kind of like building up that darkness and contrast and trying to define the forms as much as I can. So because I started out with a grisaille underpainting, you know, the values and the shadows did end up being like a little too light at this stage. So I wanted to go over a lot of them. And then here you can see I'm kind of just jumping around a lot, which I don't know if that was necessarily a good idea, but you know, I'm going in and adding highlights where I think the highlights need to be bumped up, and then darkening the shadows, as you can see. And really trying to look at my photo reference and see like where the kind of core shadow is, or like the darkest part of the shadow where the form begins to turn, and then really define that. And I also want to apologize for the crazy lighting in this video, how you can see the color temperature keeps changing. It's because I paint at night and I don't have the best lighting setup, but I'm going to try to work on that. So please be patient with me. I hope it's not too distracting. But yeah, so pretty much this whole time I'm just kind of doing what I talked about, where I kind of go in with maybe a light colored glaze in the highlights, and then kind of define the form a bit more, and then I do the same for the shadows. So kind of just jumping around and sort of going over each body part more and more, and then I end up doing the background a little bit later too. I'll try to timestamp all the different parts that I'm working on, so you can skip around if you're only interested in a certain part of the painting. When it looks like I'm not painting anything on the surface, it's just because I'm oiling out. So I always oil out when I start out a session, just so the paint goes on a bit smoother and it is easier to blend. Okay, so here I'm just going over the background again, so I'll talk more about the rejection. As I was working on this figure painting, I wanted to submit it to this show that was coming up near me. I ended up being really kind of proud of this piece. I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out the entire time I was working on it. I kind of was iffy on if I liked where it was going, but by the end I was happy with it, and I was excited to submit it to this exhibit. And then I got the email that it was rejected. But nowadays, I think at the beginning when I was first applying to different shows, I definitely would be a little sad about it for, I don't know, maybe a day or so. Not like insanely sad, but I'd be bummed. But nowadays when I get rejected, it's just like, I honestly don't care at all. And maybe that's it just takes time for that to happen. Maybe once you have to experience enough rejections to like just stop caring. But talking to friends and other painters and professionals, like I've realized that like not everyone is drawn to your specific style. And then especially with galleries, they just want pieces that will sell, and they know their audience the best because they make money off of your art selling. So there's a good chance maybe they had an idea like my art wasn't going to sell at this exhibit. They could have still liked the piece, or maybe they didn't like the piece, but that's also fine. I've seen technically really good paintings that I just haven't enjoyed looking at, and I would never buy or put in my home. And that's the cool part of painting, I guess, is that it's subjective and everyone can kind of make something that suits their interests and their aesthetic leanings. So honestly, I don't take it personally. That's just part of it. And like I said at the beginning, because it did get rejected, I had some more time with it, so I was able to paint on it some more since I hadn't varnished it yet. And actually, I'm really happy I was able to do those few little finishing touches to it, and I think it really did help out the painting a lot. So it ended up being for the best, and all I can do is move on, apply to more galleries or competitions that maybe are more interested in my style, and then just keep practicing and getting better and improving my skills. So if you're dealing with a lot of rejection, I wouldn't mind too much. Everyone gets rejected, and it's just a part of life. Also, since it was rejected, I was looking online at like other art competitions and exhibits coming up, and I actually found some other ones that I think might be a better fit for this painting, where it might be more likely that it will sell. So honestly, I just try to look at every rejection like it's just another opportunity to do something else with this painting that maybe I wouldn't have been able to do if it were to get into the show. Maybe that's just copium, but I think it's better for my mental health to look at it that way. Yeah, I'd love to hear if you've been going through any rejection and how you like to deal with it, or if you have any differing opinions. Talking more about the painting process, pretty much doing the same thing I've been doing. I will say that when I was doing a lot of these kind of, I'm calling them glazes, maybe they're more like scumbles, who really knows, but I was using titanium white at this point, and I thought it looked fine at the time, but then once the painting dried, I really didn't like the cast kind of that the titanium white was causing in certain areas of the painting. You might not be able to tell in the video footage, but in person, it's like I could see it was causing these like stark boundaries between like the different layers I had painted, which I wasn't a fan of. So in the next video, I actually switched to lead white, and I really liked how that turned out. So that might be my process going forward, is starting out with titanium white. Since it is more opaque, you can kind of get a better coverage earlier on. But if I want to just do slight modifications or glazes over the painting, I might switch to lead white in the later layers, just because it's much more transparent, and so you can build it up a bit easier and do really subtle value shifts. So here you can actually see I'm trying to cover up that like boundary you could see from the previous layer kind of drying in a slightly different color than it was the previous day. So I was trying to cover up that boundary effect, which was a little annoying, but I think I was able to do it. And I'm really trying to, as much as I like really am not a fan of painting hands or feet, I know people are drawn to the extremities and, you know, the toe. Like they're just gonna look at those features, their eyes are gonna be drawn to them. So I'm trying to be better about not just like being super vague about defining them. So, you know, I'm trying to make sure I'm defining like the ankle bone, the toes, things like that. Let me know if you have any constructive criticism. I'm gonna work better at getting better video quality. I'm sorry that some points aren't too great, but let me know if you've ever been rejected from art galleries and how you deal with it. I'd love to hear about your experience. Then here is the final painting. And this is after the edits again that I'll show in the next video. I wanted to give you a little preview. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.